Good day, everyone. I'm Jermaine Destacamento. I'm here to introduce our presentation, and the topic for today is analysis of financial statement. And the other presenters are my group mates here are Farhana Alangadi, Mel Arca, and Eliza Mary Tapil. Next. The table of content of our presentation is ratio analysis, liquidity ratios, asset management ratios, debt management ratios, profitability ratios, market value ratios, trend analysis, the dew-point equation, comparative ratios, and benchmarking, uses and limitation of ratios, EVA and ROE, and lastly, beyond the numbers. Next, please. We will start it with the perspective. When we discuss financial management, our primary primary aims is to maximize shareholder wealth in the long term. However, it's important to recognize that certain accounting measures like net income or EPS have a significant impact on stock prices and can offer valuable insights into a company's performance and future direction. Financial analysis involves two key aspects: comparing our firm's performance to others in the same industry and assessing trends in our financial position over time. By conducting this analysis, we can pinpoint areas of weaknesses within our company and take corrective actions to improve our financial health, and all while keeping in mind how both financial managers and investors evaluate firms' financial well-being. Next slide, please.
Okay, next please. Okay. In ratio analysis is a quantitative process that examines financial records and statements to provide insights into a company functional efficiency, liquidity, sales, and profitability. So there are two types of ratios na pwede mo siyang gamitin sa company or your business. So in letter A, to compare the performance of in different firm in the same industry. Example nito is ikaw yung company A, tapos yung competitor mo is company B. So doon mo ipagkukumpara kung mas naging maganda ba yung performance mo compare sa ibang firm. So malalaman mo yung differences kapag kinumpare mo siya sa ibang ibang firm but same industry. So yung sa letter B, ito naman is kapag gusto mong malaman yung performance mo sa taon. For example, in 2012, i-compare mo siya sa present year. Like for example, today. Or let's say 2012 yung before and 2013 naman is yung present mo. So dun mo makikita yung performance mo kung naging maganda ba o hindi. So overall, ratio analysis is to compare your performance on previous year or different firm but same industry. So next po na reporter.
So now we will proceed to liquidity ratio. So what is liquidity ratio? Liquidity ratio is a simple measure used to evaluate the company's ability to pay off its short-term debt with a short-term asset. It's like checking if you have enough cash or asset that can be quickly turned into a cash to cover your immediate bills or debt. So liquidity ratio has two metrics. The first one is the current ratio. So what is the current ratio? Current ratio is a primary liquidity ratio. The current ratio is a financial metric used to evaluate a company's ability to pay off its short-term liabilities with its short-term assets. It's like providing insight into a company's liquidity and its ability to pay off to meet its short-term obligation. It indicates the extent of which current liabilities are covered by this asset except to the expected to be converted to cash in the near future. So here you will see the formula that we're going to use to get the current ratio. Current ratio is equal to current asset over current liability. So, okay. If your current ratio is greater than 1, that means your current asset exceeded the current liability. But if your current ratio is less than 1, that means your current asset is less than your current liabilities, which is a bad thing when a company's liability exceeded its asset. That usually is not a good thing. So here is the one of the examples that we're gonna do to get the example for the current liabilities. So company A has 2 million and company B also have 2 million of 200 million of current assets. And company A has 100 million current liabilities, but but company B has 400 million. So if we calculate this, company A has current ratio of 2.0 and company B has current ratio of 0.5. So as you can see, company A current asset exceeded the current liabilities, and we can see the current ratio is above 1. And in company B, the current liability exceeded the current asset. That is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to own more than what you have. So in this case, current asset is less than 1, the current liabilities, and we can see the current ratio is less than 1 in company B. So now, let's do the example given in the book. So the example is Alid has 310 million of debt that is to be paid off within the coming year. Will it be trouble meeting those obligations? Okay. So Alid current asset is 1,000 trillion. So paano nga ba natin makukuha ang current asset? So as you can see in the table, ang current asset includes cash, marketable securities, account receivable, and inventory. Ang current liabilities naman, para makuha siya, current liability consists of account payable, short-term notes payable, current maturities of long-term debt, accrued tax, and accrued wage. So ang current assets ni Alid is 1,000 trillion and the current liabilities naman niya is 310 million. So if we calculate this, ang current ratio ni Alid is 3.2, which is above 1. Pero ang industry average, so wood product industry is 4.2. So as you can see, the 2.2. So Alid current ratio is 3.2. It's well above the industry average, which is below the industry average of 4.2. So its liquidity position is rather weak. Still, since its current assets are supposed to be converted to cash within a year, it is likely that they could be liquidated as close to stated value. With a current ratio of 3.2, Alid would liquidate current assets of only 31% of the book value and still can pay off the current creditors in full. So now we will proceed to the other ratio, which is the quick ratio. So what is quick ratio? The second most used ratio is the quick ratio, also known as the acid test ratio. It's a financial metric used to measure a company's ability to meet its short-term obligation using its most liquid asset. It's provide the conservative measure of liquidity compared to the current ratio because it includes inventory from its current liability. So sa liquid ratio, same lang siya sa current ratio, pero dito hindi tayo magre-relay sa inventory niya. So paano nga ba natin siya makukuha? So here is the formula for quick ratio. Fixed or asset plus ratio is equal to current asset minus inventory over current liabilities. So, yeah. Since kanina ang current asset natin is 101 trillion, ima-minus lang natin siya sa inventory which is yung 615. So, over 310 kasi yun ang current liabilities ni Alid. So, kapag kinumpit natin siya, makukuha natin quick ratio is 1.2. So, above 1 pa rin naman siya, which is good. Pero, since sa food product industry, ang industry average is 2.2. So, Alid 1.2 ratio is quite low in comparison with other firm in the industry. Still, the account receivable can be collected. The company can pay off its current liabilities without having the liquidate its inventory. So now for the Rex reporter.
Asset management ratio. Next slide. So asset management ratio is a set of ratio that measures how effective a firm managing its assets. So this ratio include metrics like inventory turnover ratio, days sales outstanding or DSO, fixed asset turnover ratio, and total assets turnover ratio. Next slide. So inventory turnover ratio. So it is a ratio where sales are divided by some asset. And as the name implies, they show how many times the item is turned over during the year. So inventory turnover ratio, itong ratio na to assess how quickly a company sell its inventory within a time period, usually a year. So it is calculated by dividing the cost of goods by average inventory for the same period. So for example, let's say company A had the following data for a year. Sales which is $3,000, inventory which is $615. So inventory turnover ratio is equal to 3,000 over 615 is equal to 4.87 or 4.987 times. And the given industry average is 10.9 times. So it means company A sells its inventory about 4.9 times time per year. So in this example, company A inventory turnover is 4.9, which is mas mababa kaysa sa industry average, which is 10.9 times. So this suggests that company A holding on too much inventory for too long, which means that it might have too many products in storage for too much time. Next slide. So days sales outstanding, so also called the average collection period. So DSO, minimeasure naman nito on how long it takes sa isang company or firm na i-collect yung payment after making a sales. So this ratio is calculated by dividing accounts receivable by average sales per day. It indicates the average length of time the firm must wait after making a sale before it receives cash. So for example, if company C has $375 in accounts receivable and 3,000 in annual sales. So in this calculation, we use a 365-day year. So we divide 3,000 by 365 to get the average sales per day. Then we divide the receivables, $375 by the average sales, 8.2192 to get the number of days it takes to collect payments, which is approximately 46 days in this case. Now the industry average is given as 36 days. This means a company in the industry takes 36 days to collect payments from their customer. So in this case, company CDSO is higher than the industry average, where is 46 days compared to the industry average of 36 days. So it indicates that company is mas matagal yung pagko-collect ng payment nila compare sa other industry. So next slide. Fixed assets turnover ratio. So fixed asset turnover ratio measures how effectively the firm uses its plant and equipment. So fixed asset turnover ratio measures how well a company uses its fixed assets. This can be including tangible assets like property, building, machinery, and equipment. as well as intangible assets like patents, copyrights, and trademarks. Essentially, anything na company own and expects to use for more than one accounting period would be typically classified as a fixed assets. So this ratio is calculated by dividing sales by net fixed sales. So for example, let's say a company E has sales worth $3,000 and a net fixed asset of $1,000. So to calculate the fixed asset turnover ratio, fixed asset turnover ratio is equal to 3,000 divided by 1,000 is equal to 3 times. So in this case, company E has a fixed asset turnover ratio, which is calculated to be 3 times. So this means that for every dollar of net fixed assets, the company generates $3 in sales. Now, if the industry average for fixed asset turnover ratio is 2.8 times, it suggests that other company in the same industry is mas nag-generate ng mas mababang net fixed asset compared to this company. So this could imply that company E is utilizing its fixed assets more efficiently more than its industry peers, which is generally a positive sign. So it indicates that company is effectively using its fixed asset para makapag-generate ng income. Next slide. Total assets turnover ratio. So it is the final asset management ratio. So total asset management ratio naman is mini-measure how efficiently a company use its asset para makapag-generate ng sales. Kumbaga kung magkano yung revenue ng company na generate for every peso or dollar na ini-invest sa assets. So it is calculated by total assets turnover ratio is equal to sales over total assets. So for example, let's say company F has a sales of $3,000 and total assets of $2,000 and the given industry average, which is 1.8 times. So total asset turnover ratio is equal to 3,000 divided by 2,000 is 1.5 times. So in this scenario, at the total asset turnover ratio of company F is calculated to be 1.5 times. Now the industry average in this case is 1.8 times, so it suggests that other companies in the same industry are generating slightly more sales compared to this company. Next slide.
Debt management ratio. Next slide, please. Debt management ratio. When a firm decides to use debt financing, it has significant implications. Firstly, by relying on debt, the firm can control a larger number of assets with a smaller investment from shareholders. Secondly, creditors rely on the equity portion provided by shareholders as a safety cushion, meaning a higher proportion of equity reduces the risk for creditors. Lastly, if the firm earns a higher return on its assets than the interest rate it pays on debt, leveraging amplifies the return on equity or ROE, potentially leading to higher returns for shareholders. Overall, these factors highlight the complex interplay between debt, equity, and risk in financial decision making. Next slide, please. Leverage means using borrowed funds to finance investment, which can potentially increase returns but also increases the risk due to the obligation to repay the borrowed money. Unleveraged refers to not using borrowed funds for financing, relying solely on one's own funds or equity. This approach usually carries less risk since there's no debt to repay. Next slide, please. Total debt to total assets. The total debt to total assets ratio is a key debt management ratio that measures the proportion of a company's assets financed by debt. It's calculated by dividing the total debt of the company by its total assets. This ratio provides insight into the extent to which a company relies on debt to finance its operations and investment. A higher ratio indicates a larger portion of assets is funded by debt. suggesting higher financial risk, while a lower ratio indicates a more conservative approach with a smaller reliance on debt financing. Overall, this ratio helps assess the company's financial health and its ability to manage debt effectively. Let's, for example, let's say we have Company X operating in the retail industry. Company X has total debt of $500,000 and total assets of $1 million. To calculate its debt to total asset ratio, debt ratio is equals to total debt divided by total assets. Debt management ratio is equals to $500 divided by $1 million is equals to 0.5. So Company X has a total debt to total assets ratio of 0.5, indicating that 50% of its total assets are financed by debt. Now let's compare this ratio to the industry average. Suppose the industry average for total debt to total assets ratio in the retail sector is 0.4. This means that on average, retail companies in the industry have 40% of their total assets financed by debt. Comparing Company X ratio of 0.5 to the industry average of 0.4, we can infer that Company X has a higher reliance on debt financing compared to the industry average. This could indicate potentially higher financial risk for Company X as it has a larger proportion of debt funding its assets than its industry peers. Next slide, please. Interest time times interest earned ratio. The times interest earned ratio or TIE ratio is a key debt management ratio that measures a company's ability to cover its interest payments on debt obligation with its earning. It's calculated by dividing the company's earnings before interest and taxes or EBIT by its interest expense. The formula for times interest earned ratio is times interest ratio is equals to earning before interest and taxes or EBIT divided by interest expense. This ratio indicates how many times a company's operating income can cover its interest obligation. A higher TIE ratio suggests that the company has more earnings available to cover its interest payments, indicating lower financial risk and a stronger ability to service its debt. Conversely, a lower TIE ratio may indicate that the company has less cushion to cover its interest expenses, potentially signaling higher financial risk. For example, let's consider Company Y operating in the manufacturing industry. Company Y has earning before interest and taxes or EBIT of 800,000 and an interest expense of 200 um $200,000 to indicate this times interest earned TIE ratio. TIE ratio is equals to EBIT divided by interest expense or TIE ratio is equals to $800,000 divided by $200,000 is equals to 4. So company Y has TIE ratio of 4, indicating that its earning before interest and taxes are 4 times greater than its interest expense. This suggests that Company Y has a strong ability to cover its interest payments with its operating income. Now let's compare this ratio to the industry average. Suppose the industry average PIE ratio for manufacturing companies is 6. This means that on average, companies in the manufacturing industry have earnings before interest and taxes that are 6 times greater than its interest expense. Comparing companies Y PIE ratio of 4 to the industry average of 6, we can infer that company Y may have lower ability to cover its interest payments, compared to its industry peers. This indicates potentially higher financial risk for company Y in terms of servicing its debt obligation. Next slide, please. EBITDA coverage ratio. The EBITDA coverage ratio is a financial metric used to assess a company's ability to meet its financial obligations, including interest payments, principal repayments, and lease payments. It addresses two shortcomings of the times interest earned or TIE ratio. Firstly, it recognizes the interest is not the only fixed financial charge, as a companies also need to repay debt on a fixed schedule and make lease payments. Second, it acknowledges that EBIT or earning before interest and taxes may not fully represent the cash flow available to service debt, especially if a company has significant depreciation and or amortization charges. The formula for EBITDA coverage ratio is EBITDA coverage ratio is equals to EBITDA plus lease payments divided by interest plus principal payments plus lease payments. In this ratio, EBITDA or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization represents all the cash flow available for payments, while the denominator includes all required financial payments such as interest and debt, financial repayments, and lease payments. By considering both cash flow and financial obligations, the EBITDA coverage ratio provides a comprehensive assessment of a company's ability to meet its financial commitment. This ratio is commonly used by bankers and investors to evaluate the financial health and stability of a company, particularly in industries where lease obligations and debt repayments schedules play a significant role. For example, let's consider Company Z operating in the technology sector. Company Z has the following financial data. EBITDA is equals to $1,200,000. Lease payments is equals to $100,000. Um, Interest payments is equals to $150,000. $1,000. Principal payments is equals to $200,000. To calculate company Z's EBITDA coverage ratio is EBITDA coverage ratio is equals to EBITDA plus lease payments divided by interest payments plus principal payments plus lease payments, or EBITDA coverage ratio is equals to $1,200,000 plus $100,000 divided by $150,000 plus $200,000 plus $100,000 is EBITDA coverage ratio is $1,300,000 is divided by $450,000 is equals to 2.89. So Company Z has an EBITDA coverage ratio of approximately 2.89, indicating that it has sufficient cash flow to cover its interest payments, principal payments, and lease payments nearly 3 times over. Now let's compare this ratio to the industry average. Suppose the industry average EBITDA coverage ratio for technology companies is 3.5. This means that an average companies in the technology sector has cash flow available to cover its financial obligations 3.5 times over. Comparing Company Z's ratio of 2.89 to the industry average of 3.5, we can infer that Company Z may have a slightly lower ability to cover its financial obligations comparing to its industry peers. This could indicate potential financial risks for Company Z, which may warrant further analysis by investors and creditors. Next slide, please.
So now we will proceed to profitability ratio. So what is profitability ratio? This ratio reveals the overall outcome of the company's financing choice and operational decision. Essentially, they show us how well the company is doing in terms of making a profit. So profitability ratio gives us a clear picture of whether the company is making money or not. It's like looking at the bottom line of the business to see how successful it is in the grand scheme of things. So profitability ratio has four ratios. So now, the first one is profit margin ratio. So what is profit margin ratio? The profit margin ratio, often simplified, refers to as the profit margin. It is a financial metric that measures the company's profitability by expressing its net income as a percentage of the total revenue. It indicates how much profit a company generates from each dollar of revenue earned. So here you will see the formula for profit margin on sales or profit margin ratio. So paano nga ba natin makukuha ang profit margin? So profit margin is equal to net income over sales. Since i-express natin siya as percentage, ita-times natin siya sa 100 para makuha natin yung percentage. So, ang net income or net profit ni Alid sa makikita niyo sa table is 117.5 million. So, over sales, which is revenue, ang ang sales niya is 3 trillion times 100. So, ang profit margin natin is pag kinalculate natin siya, makukuha natin is 3.9%. Pero, kung i-compare natin siya sa industry average, ng 0, which is 5, Alid profit margin is lower than the industry average of 5% because of the high costs, mainly stemming from effective operation and heavy reliance on debt. Even if two firms have identical sales and operating costs, the one use more debt can be a higher interest charge, leading to a lower profit margin. This doesn't necessarily indicate an operational issue but reflect different financing strategies. Despite a low profit margin, the firm with more debt might be yield to a higher rate of return for its stockholders due to the financial leverage. It's important to consider not only high return on sales but also the turnover. Setting very high product price can result to a high return on each sale. But if overall sales are low, the profit margin is not be optimal. So balancing both finance factors is crucial for a comprehensive assessment of a company's financial performance. So now we will proceed to the return on total assets. So what is the return on total asset or ROA? So the return on net income to total asset measured the return on sales asset or the ROA after interest and tax. Return on sales, return on total asset is a financial ratio that measures a company profitability in relation to its total asset. It indicates how efficiently a company is used to its asset to generate profit. ROA is often expressed also as a percentage. Higher ROA indicates that the company is generating more profit per unit of assets, which is positive indicator of efficiency and profitability. So here is the formula for return on total asset or ROA. ROA is equal to net income over total asset. So, ang gagamitin nating example is yun sa book, which is yung kay Alid Food Product. So, ang net income ni Alid is 117.5 over total asset niya is 2 trillion. So, ito times natin ulit siya sa 100 para makuha natin yung percentage. So, pag kinalculate natin, makukuha natin return on total asset niya is 5.9%. So, Alid return of 5.9% is less than the industry average of 9%, which isn't ideal. However, a low return on assets isn't necessarily a problem. It might be due to a deliberate choice to use of a lot of debt. This results a higher interest expense leading to a lower net income. Diba? That is a factor in Alid low return on assets. When evaluating a company's performance, it's crucial to consider multiple ratios. Interpret which it struggled and nonetheless of the overall situation to understand what action in the company should take to improve. So next one is basic earning ratio, basic earning power ratio or BEP. So what is BEP? The basic earning power ratio is calculated by dividing earnings before interest and tax or EBIT by total assets. So this ratio indicates the ability of the firm's asset to generate operating income. Earning power represent the company's ability to generate profit. So the basic earning ratio is a financial metric used to assess the company's ability to generate operating profit from its asset before considering the effect of tax and financial leverage or in debt. So it is a measure of the company's operating efficiency, and it's often used to compare the compare the performance of different companies within the same industry. So here you will see the formula for basic earning power ratio. So this ratio indicates the ability to firm asset to generate operating income calculated by dividing EBIT to total assets. So makikita natin ang EBIT ni Alid is 283.5 million over 2 trillion. 2 trillion. So, pag kinalculate natin siya, makukuha natin is 14.2%. So, kanina, sabi ko nga, para makuha natin siya ng percentage, ita-times natin siya sa 100. So, 283.8 over 2 trillion is 8. Times 100, it's equal to 14.2%. So, kung i-compare natin siya sa industry average, medyo mababa siya kasi 18% ang industry average. So, the ratio being discussed here, so, medyo mababa siya sa industry average ng 18%. So, the higher the BEP ratio, the more efficient the company is at generating income from its assets. Because of its low turnover ratio and poor profit margin on sales, Alid had a lower BEP ratio than the average for food processing company. So the last one for profitability ratio is basic earning return on common equity. So what is return on common equity? Return on common equity, also known as return on equity or ROE, is a financial ratio that measures a company's profitability related to the shareholder equity. It shows how much profit a company generates with the money invested by the common shareholders. So here you will see the formula for our ROE, net income over common equity. Simply put, a higher ROE indicates better profitability for shareholders and may lead to increased stock price. So the ROE of net income to over measures the rate of return on common stockholders' investment. So, ROE, ang ROE, kung i-compute natin ang kay Alid, ang net income niya is 117.5 million over 940 million is equal to 12.5%. So, in simple terms, sh- sh- stockholder investment money is a company with the expectations of earning a return. The return on equity or ROE ratio is a measure that shows how well they are doing in financial terms. In this case of Alid, their 12.5% ROE is below the industry average of 15%. However, it it's not as low as the return on total assets. The company's slightly better ROE is attributed to the higher use of debt. Essentially, this ratio helps the investor with the company's profitability and how it effectively is using its resources to generate returns for shareholders. So now let's talk about market value ratio. So what is market value ratio? So market value ratio is linked stock price to earning cash flow and book value per shares, providing insight into investor perspective of risk future prospect. It, if liquidity assets management, debt management, and profitability ratio are profit favorable and stable over time, high market value indicates good management, while low ratio, ratios may signal a need for change. So market value has three metrics like price to earning ratio, price or cash flow ratio, market or book ratio. Ang una natin pag-uusapan is price to earning ratio. So price to earning ratio is a widely used financial metric that compares a company's current market price per share to its earning per share or EPS. It is a valuation ratio that helps investors sorry about that. Okay, the, the price to earning ratio is a widely used financial metric that compares a company's current market price per share to its earning per share, or EPS. It is a valuation ratio that helps investors assess the relative value of the company's stock and determine whether it's overvalued, undervalued, or fairly valued. So kapag overvalued, meron siyang high price to return, price to earning ratio. Pero pag undervalued naman siya, meron siyang low price to earning ratio. So, here you will see the formula of how to get the price to earning ratio. So, price to earning ratio is equal to price per share over earning per share. So, ang price per share ni Alid is $23 over earning per share niya is $2.35. Pag kinalculate natin siya, makukuha natin is 9.8. So, higher PE ratio usually indicates strong growth and low risk. However, Alid price to earning ratio is below the industry average for similar companies of food processing industry. So this suggests that the investor might see Allied as a risker, having poor growth perspective or both compared to its peers to the same industry. So now we will discuss what is price to cash flow ratio. The price to cash flow ratio is a financial metric used to evaluate the value of a company's stock relevance to its cash flow per share. It provides insight into how the market value a company's stock compared to the cash flow it's generating. So here you will see the formula for price to cash flow. So price to cash flow is equal to price per share over cash flow per share. So ang price per share ni Alec is $23 over cash flow per share niya is $4.35. Kinakalculate natin siya, makukuha natin is 5.3. Pero ang industry average naman is 5.4. So, added price to cash flow is slightly below the industry average, indicating that its growth prospect might be below average, its risk higher, or both. The cash, the price to cash flow ratio helps investor assess the relative value of the company's stock based on the cash flow generation. A low s- price to cash flow ratio may suggest that the company's stock is undervalued. As the investor are paying less for each dollar of cash flow, conservatively, a high price to cash flow ratio may indicate that the stock is overvalued relative to the cash flow. So the last one is market to book ratio. So when you're looking at the stock or a share on a company, the ratio of its market price is its book value can tell you how investor feels about the company. So market price, this is the current price of the stock in the stock market. And ang book value naman, it is the net value of the company's asset, like building, equipments, etc. Minus its liability, debt, or obligation. It what the company would be worth if it is sold of all its asset and pay off its debt. So if the market price is high compared to the book value, it suggests that the investor will see the company in a positive light. This usually happens in the companies that are doing well, earning good profit, and have the reliable cash flow. On the other hand, if the market price is low compared to the book value, it might mean the investor aren't as confident in the company. This often happens when a company that have lower returns or are facing challenges. In a nutshell, a high market a high market to book ratio indicates that the investor have faith in the company's future earning and growth. But a low ratio suggests some skeptic, skepticism or concern about the company's financial health. So here you will see the book value. Here you will see the formula for book value per share. So book value per share is equal to common equity over share outstanding. So ang common equity ni Alip is 940 million over 15 is equal to 18.80. So here you will see the market to book ratio. So market to book ratio is equal to market price per share over book value ratio. So ang market price per share ni Alip is $23 over $18.80 is equal to 1.2, which is lower than the industry average of 1.7. So, so in September 2005, investors were willing to pay for the dollar of solid book value compared to the average food processing company. This aligned with the general trade in the market where investors typically pay off the stock than their accounting book value. The average market to book ratio for Standard & Poor or S&P 500 companies at the time was about 2.87. This situation arises because according book value don't account for factors like inflation or goodwill. Assets purchased a per inflation price are carried off a balance sheet as their original cost. Even if the inflation has significantly increased their actual value, for a successful company with a higher return on assets said to have a higher market value compared to its book value. For example, for stra- some struggling airlines have market to book ratio below 1.0, while successful company like Microsoft has a market to book ratio of 5.9. In September 2005, this means the Microsoft market value was nearly 6 times of the book value per share, showcase the impact of a high return on assets. So next reporter.
So next, trend analysis. Next, please. Next slide. So in trend analysis, collecting the information to multiple accounts period. The method of trend analysis involves looking at the past and present data to forecast an item's movement. Making decision based on trend data might help you leverage trend research to grow your company. So when you say trend analysis, it means ito yung process for you to know if the business is downgrade or upward. And on this other side, this is the process for you to get the final answer of your trend analysis. So first is trend analysis. This is a comparable financial statement for 3 to 4 or 5 years. The first year is often known as the base year. So on the next slide, I will show you the example of the base year on the 100% of the first year. So third is we will be recommended upward and downward trend direction of the income statement. And the last one is to analyze the problem. Next slide, please. So these are the example of trend analysis. This is just only an example. So first is the income statement. Nag-provide ako dito ng 3 years, which is the 2015, 2016, and 2017. So the base year here is 2015, which is all the income statement is 100%. For you to get the percent of 2016, you have to divide the 1,432.2 to 1,638.7, which is the 2016. And these are the final answer, the A2 income statement. Pero yan, base kay sir is mali yan. For you, pero yung binigay kong formula, which is yun yung makukuha mo yung sagot. So, after natin mailagay lahat ng percent sa income statement, ipapakita ko po kung paano makukuha yung graphic ng malalaking amount. So, next please. So, these are the net sales and the net income. The net sales is, kung mapapansin nyo, is tumaas yung rate niya from 2015 to 2017. So, in other side, the net income is ang net income naman ay bumaba from 2015 to 2017. If you can see, from 100% to almost, to 80%. That's the graphic of the net sales and net income. So next, please.
The DuPont equation. Next, please. The DuPont equations, also known as the DuPont analysis or DuPont identity, is a financial ratio that breaks down the return on equity or ROE into three components: profitability, efficiency, and leverage. It is a powerful tool used by analysts and investors to understand the factors driving a company's ROE and to assess its financial performance. The formula for the DuPont equation is ROE is equals to net profit margin times asset turnover times equity multiplier, where net profit margin can formula is equals to net income divided by revenue. Then for the formula for asset turnover is equals to revenue divided by average total assets. And lastly, the formula for equity multiplier is equals to average total assets divided by average shareholders equity. By breaking down ROE into these components, the DuPont equation helps analysts understand the sources of a company's profitability and identify areas for improvement. For example, a company with a high ROE may have achieved it through high profitability, efficiency, assets utilizations, or significant leverage. Conversely, a low ROE could result from low profitability, poor asset turnover, or excessive leverage. Overall, the DuPont equations provide a valuable insights into a company's financial performance and helps investors make more informed decisions. For example, um, for example, for the DuPont equation, company XYZ has the following financial information for the year. Um, for the net income is equals to $500,000. For the revenue is equals to 2 million dollar. For the total assets is equals to $1,500,000. And lastly, for average shareholders equity is equals to $800,000. Now let's calculate each component of the DuPont equation. For profitability or net profit margin is equals to net income divided by revenue. Net profit margin is equals to $500,000 divided by $2 million is equals to 0.25 or 25%. For efficiency or the assets turnover, the formula for that is assets turnover is equals to revenue divided by average total assets. Asset turnover is equals to $2 million divided by $1,500,000 is equals to 1.33. Third is the leverage or the equity multiplier. The formula for equity multiplier again is equity multiplier is equals to average total assets divided by average shareholders equity. Equity multiplier is equals to 1,500,000 is equals to sorry for that. Again, the equity multiplier is equals to $1,500,000 is equals to $800,000. Divided by $800,000 is equals to 1.875. Now let's calculate the ROE using the DuPont equation. ROE, the formula for DuPont equation is ROE is equals to net profit margin times asset turnover times equity multiplier. The ROE is equals to 0.5 times 1.33 times 1.875 is equals to 0.625 or 82.5%. So the company XYZ has a return on equity or ROE of 62.5%. This breakdown helps us understand that this ROE is achieved through a combination of profitability, efficiency, and leverage. Next slide, please.
Comparative ratios and benchmarking. Slide. So comparative ratios and benchmarking are both methods used to assess a company's performance companies relative to others, but they approach it differently. So comparative ratio, comparing specific financial ratio ng isang company to those of similar firms with the same industry in terms of profitability, liquidity, and efficiency. Benchmarking naman is a process of comparing a particular company with a group of benchmarks. So they look at performance across industry to identify best practice in terms of performance metrics, process, practice to those of best in class companies regardless of industry. So benchmarking companies are the leading or top performing companies within a particular industry or sector. So these companies are used as reference points for comparison by other firms within the same industry. Essentially, they serve as standards against which other companies measure their own performance. Next slide. So in this context provided, Allied Management is benchmarking its financial ratios against leading food companies like Campbell Soup, Hershey's Food, and others. So by comparing their performance to these benchmark companies, Allied can gain insights into their relative position in the food industry and identify areas for improvement. Next slide. So in this table, it is the key financial ratios for selected industry. So the ratios presented are average for each industry. So ratios for the individual companies are also available. So the inventory turnover ratio in this table is calculated as company's latest 12 months of cost of sales divided by the average of its inventory for the last quarter and the comparable year earlier quarter. So the debt ratio in this table is calculated as 1 return on assets divided by return on equity. So the day sales outstanding ratio in this table was calculated as 365 divided by receivable turnover. So the receivable turnover is calculated as the company's latest 12 months of sales divided by the average of its receivable for the last quarter and comparable year earlier quarter. Next slide. So uses and limitations of ratio analysis. Next slide. So as I noted earlier, ratio analysis is a tool used by three main groups: managers, credit analysts, and stock analysts. So it is a valuable tool used by the three main groups to understand companies' financial health and performance. So managers, they use ratio para mas maintindihan at ma-improve yung company's operations. Sa credit analyst naman, they use ratio para ma-assess yung company's ability para mabayaran yung utang, which helps them to make decision about lending money or assigning bond ratings. So sa stock analyst, they analyze ratio to evaluate a company's efficiency, risk, and potential for growth, which nakakatulong naman sa kanila to make recommendation about buying or selling stocks. Next slide. While ratio analysis can provide valuable insights into a company's performance, importante din natandaan that it has limitation and some potential problems that are need to careful consideration. So the first one is difficulty in developing industry average for large diverse firms. So for big companies with division and different industry, finding industry average for comparison is tough because each company is unique. They have different operation, markets, and strategies. Also, getting accurate data from these companies is not always easy. So, ratio analysis work better for smaller, more focused company. Next is aim to beat industry leaders, not just be average. So, karamihan sa mga companies, they aim to do better than others, not just be average. So, it's smarter to compare how well you're doing to the best performing company in your industry rather than to be average. So, yung benchmarking is nakakatulong para mag-set ng high performance targets. So, next is inflation impacts on balance sheet. So, alam mo naman natin na inflation cause problems sa financial record ng isang companies because yung value day record can be different dun sa actual values. So, this affect things like depreciation charge and inventory cost, which can impact profits. The next is seasonal distortion. So, seasonal factors can mess up ratio analysis. Using monthly average for inventory and receivable help minimize this problem. Window dressing techniques. So, window dressing is a technique employed by firms to make their financial statements look better than they really are. So, window dressing is a trick when company temporarily make their financial ratios look better, like borrowing money to improve current and quick ratios. Pero itong improvements na to doesn't last long and don't show the real financial picture. Next is difficulty in generalizing good or bad ratio. A different accounting practice. So using different ways to do accounting can make it hard to compare companies. For example, if company lists assets instead of buying them, and those assets might not show up on its balance sheet, this can make it look like the company has fewer assets compared to its sales. Then difficulty in generalizing good or bad ratio. So it's tough to decide if ratio is good or bad because it changes depending on the situation. Last is mix of good and bad ratio. So a company might have some ratio that look good and others that look bad, making it hard to tell how strong it is overall. So statistical method help figure out the overall impact of ratios and classify companies based on their financial health. Next slide.
And next is EVA and EVA and ROE. Next slide, please. So EVE and ROE. The meaning of EVA is economic value added, and ROE is return on equity, are both financial metrics used to evaluate a company's performance, but they approach it from different perspective. Understanding their connection can provide a deeper insight into a company financial health and value creation. So ROE measures the profitability of a company relative to its equity. It shows how effectively a company is utilizing shareholder equity to generate profits. ROE also is calculated by dividing net income by shareholders' equity. So in EVA, or economic value added, on the other hand, is a measure of economic profitability that takes into account the cost of capital. It represents the amount of value a company has created or destroyed for its shareholder after considering the cost of the capital employed. So next, please. Next, please. So on this slide, I provided the example of income statement. First is the operating income, which is $20,000, and second is interest expense is $5,000, and third, earning before tax or EBT is $15,000. Income taxes is $6. Net income is $9. So these are in EVA. This is the formula. EBIT plus parenthesis 1 minus corporate tax rate minus total investor supplier operating capital times after-tax percentage cost of capital. So, in income statement, the problem solving, it's operating income. So let's see the income statement of Keller Electronics. So first, it's operating income. EBIT is $20,000, which is yung sa operating, and its interest expense is 0.10 times $50,000 is equal to $5,000. So therefore, its taxable income is $20,000 minus $5,000 is equal to $15,000. As you can see in income statement, and taxes is equal to 40% of taxable income, or 0.4 times $15 is equal to $6,000. So the firm's net income is $9,000, and its return on equity is ROE is $9,000 divided by $50,000 is equal to 18%. Now, now what is Keller's AVE? So the basic formula for us to get the AVE is EBIT at times first is earning before interest and taxes, and AVE is EBIT 1 corporate tax rate times total investors minus supplied operating capital. So after tax so these are the formula. So 20,000 close parenthesis 1 negative minus 0.4 and times $1,000. So before we get the answer, first we need to minus the 1 minus 0.4 and after you get the answer, ipa-plus mo siya dito. Ita-times mo siya dito sa 20,000, and after that, next isosolve natin tong 100,000. Ita-times natin tong 100,000 to 0.10, and then ima-minus naman natin yung sagot dito sa 20,000, which is 10,000, and then dito yung sagot dito is 12,000, and then the answer is 2,000. That's the final answer. So next, please.
Beyond the numbers. Next, please. Hopefully, working through this chapter has increased your ability to understand and interpret financial statements. This is critically important for anyone making business decisions, evaluating performance, or forecasting likely future developments. Moreover, sound financial analysis involves more than just calculating numbers. Good analysis requires that certain qualitative factors be considered when evaluating a company. These factors, such as summarizing by the American Association of Individual Investors or AAII, including the following. First, customer concentration is crucial to assess whether the company relies heavily on one key customer for its revenue. If this customer were to leave, it could have significant impact on the company's performance. However, if the relationship is strong and long-standing, it might have stabilized sales. Second is product concentration. Consider that extent to which the company's revenue depend on a single key product, while focusing on one product may improve efficiency. It also increases risk. Diversification across multiple products can help mitigate this risk and safeguard against a drop in demand for any one product. Third is supplier deficiency. Evaluate whether the company heavily depends on a single supplier. Relying on one supplier could lead to unexpected shortages, which investors and creditors need to consider when assessing the company's risk. Fourth is international exposure. Wait, excuse me. Um, Sorry for that. Um, Fourth is international exposure. Examine the proportion of the company's business generated overseas. While international markets offer growth opportunities, they also expose the company to regional instability and currency fluctuations, which can impact financial performance. The fifth is competitive landscape. Analyze the level of a competition in the company's industry. Increase competition by leading to lower prices and profit margins, affecting future performance. It's essential to assess both current competitors and the potential for new entrants into the market. Sixth is the research and development. Look into the company's investment in research and development or R&D. Heavy investment in R&D indicates a focus on innovations and future growth. The success of new products in the pipeline can significantly impact the company's future prospects. The last is legal and regulatory environment. Consider changes in law and regulations that could affect the company's operations. This is particularly important for industries subject to regulatory changes such as tobacco, banking, telecommunications, and utilities. Analysis need to forecast the impact of regulatory changes on the industry and the company's ability to adapt to these changes. By considering these key factors, stakeholders can gain a comprehensive understanding of a company's environment, potential risks, and opportunities for the future growth. Um, Next, please. And thank you. That's all for our presentation of Group 2. Stop the recording.